Hey, it's me, TB, and today I'm bringing to you the 21 books I want to read in 2021. Listen, I know this is very late, but when am I ever on time for anything? Never is the answer. So here we are. So first off, I'd be stupid if I didn't mention this here, but I am doing a read-along for War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. Right now we are in the second month, so there's still plenty of time to catch up, because we're going to be reading this until like May 31st, I think. I will link down below the read-along Twitter and all of that down below. And I'm actually still behind on this because I'm right there. I need to be right there. So you see, even I'm behind. So of course you can still jump in right here. So basically where I'm at is basically following a group of Russian nobles as they're kind of dealing with Napoleon invading them, and how some of them are basically out of money and need to beg for assistance, and other ones are kind of losing their sons to war and all of that. I know that a common issue people have with this book is getting confused with names, and my edition has a little list of the major characters' names, and so far I've not gotten confused between names. That might change as we go on because there's still an extra 900 pages to go, but so far on page 92 I have everyone put together very well. So another book that has been on too many TBRs is The Three Musketeers by Alexandria Dumas. And this is basically following the Three Musketeers as they kind of go on their first adventure, I guess. And it takes place in the 1620s at the court of Louis XIII. And yeah, I don't know too much besides that, but here it is. And basically, one, I want to read this because it is a classic. And second of all, they're this really pretty set of hardcovers of this series being re-released, because there are the Three Musketeers saga, I guess, and it's this publication house is doing new fancy set of the hardcovers, so I kind of want those, but I should probably read this first so I can know if I like it, so that's here. And it isn't going to be all classics, it's just that I have a lot of classics on this list, so bear with me. I have Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes, and this is a thick boy. I'm pretty sure this is also on my list of classics to read in 2020. Obviously, I did not get to it. Maybe I will do another read along for this in the second half of the year. Who knows? But basically, this is following the titular knight Don Quixote as he goes on adventures to do something or other. Basically, I just wanted to read this because I had to read a section of it for my ACT, one of those big fancy exams you do at the end of your high school years. I read part of it and I wanted to read the whole thing. So here it is. And yeah, I don't know much besides the fact that it is a classic. It's thick. And yeah, I know that it's supposed to be a satire about medieval romances. Then there is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. I have no idea what this is about, but people have been raving about it on BookTube for a while now, and I've heard recently nothing but good things. I heard that this can read more like a history book. Honestly, I don't mind that. It makes it sound more interesting to me instead of less interesting, so there's that. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be describing some historical event that happened in China's history, or inspired by that event. No idea, but here it is. I've owned it for at least a year now, so I should probably get to it at some point. And I'm pretty sure the third book in the series is coming out soonish, this year maybe. So yeah, here's this. Then there is Promise of Blood by Brian Mcquillen. This has also been on my TBR for a longest time. Basically, this is a powder punk fantasy novel where there's magic derived from gunpowder and all that. Basically, this is following this guy that has just overthrown the king as he's trying to basically keep power over the city and the country and all that stuff. Basically, I heard that there was a coup and that there's gunpowder magic, and I was here for it. So here it is. And I've heard really good things about the series. So yeah. Then I want to read Nightfall in the Vampire Diaries series. This is book one and the second arc of the Vampire Diaries, because there are a variety of separate arcs in this overall as a series. So it's kind of weird. But this is volume one in The Return, which I'm pretty sure takes place right after the events of the Dark Reunion, I think is last in the first arc. But regardless, this basically kicks off kicking off a new era of the Vampire Diaries. So there's that. And yeah, listen, L.J. Smith is a very acquired taste, and you either like her or you don't. So yeah, there's that. And since I want to read more American classics, here is Charlotte Temple and Lucy Temple by Susanna Rosen. This is basically one of the first novels written by a woman in the U.S. I'm pretty sure this was published in 1794, so we're on the cusp of the 19th century. Basically, what I know about this is that Charlotte Temple was one of the best-selling books in America until Uncle Tom's Cabin, so it did have a lot of influence over the U.S.'s literary landscape, and it's basically following our main character, Charlotte, as she elopes to America and then it gets abandoned. This is a novel about morals, all that stuff that isn't so it probably isn't going to be as empowering as it sounds. So yeah, I'm already aware of that, but I just want to read more classics from early US. So here we are. Then I want to read Sleep Volume 1 by Kate Tiernan. Basically, this was recommended to me by Therese, and since we have similar tastes, I kind of trust her opinion on books. So basically this is following our main character, Morgan, as she discovers that she is a witch, and paranormal romance happens from there because she finds this out from meeting Cal, who's also a witch. Romance happens. This is published in the 2000s, so I'm already expecting some cheesy stuff. I don't have a copy of this that I want to dig out because it's over here. But I do finally want to read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, I think, by one of the Bronte sisters. Who cares? But just that since I finished Jane Austen, I kind of want to get into the Bronte sisters now because they're basically the major women writers from the Victorian era. So kind of want to also read their works too. Honestly, I get this book and Wuthering Heights confused all the time, so I have no idea what this is about, where she meets Rochester, but I might be totally fucking wrong. No idea. So yeah, there's that. Then next is Pamela by Samuel Richardson, and this was first published in 1740. It's kind of a major moment when we start seeing the emergence of the modern novel. So I want to read it for that reason, which shows how much of a loser I am, but here we are. So basically, this is following our main character Pamela, as she's basically a low-class worker for this rich guy. He's basically trying to assault her. Stuff that happens from there. Obviously, you probably want to get very toxic, but still, it's a classic, and it was a very well-known classic because it has been referenced in a few books that I've read from the Victorian era. So obviously, it did have impact on English literature as we know it. So I kind of want to read it for that reason. So here it is. Then I want to read Pamphylia to Amphilanthus by Lady Mary Worth. Although this edition also has Salmacis and Hermaphroditus. Who knows? That is a very big word. I'm very small-brained, so wherever that goes from there. And basically, Pamphylia to Amphilanthus. Basically, Lady Mary Roth was a female writer in the 17th century. She was a writer of I think it is the first romance novel written by a woman, romance in the older sense. I think it's called The Lady Countess of Montgomery's Urania. It's a very long title, but anyway, Pamphylia to Amphilanthus is a section of poetry that is in that book, and since that novel was never finished, it isn't available to read anywhere really. So this is basically the only way to consume anything from that book. So here it is. That's why. And also I had to read, I think, a few parts of the poetry for my British literature class. So that's also why, because I did what I read from there. Next up is a reread, but have not read this book since middle school. It's basically reading the book for the first time all over again. That is Gabriel by Garth Nix. Basically this is following Gabriel, who's a child of the Aporson, and the Aporson is basically this guy that can talk to the dead, and through the use of bells, he can go into the underworld and send other people into the underworld as well. So it's very connected with ghosts and death and all that stuff. Basically, Gabriel's dad goes missing. She decides to set out on a quest to find him. Next up is Islanders and the Fishers of Men by Yevgeny Zanyatin, and this is one of his other works. I read We by him and I really liked it, and then I read one of his short story collections. I didn't really like that one as much. I knew it was good, wasn't incredible. This is another one of the things that he wrote a long time ago. And so basically this is a collection of 2 novellas, I guess you would call them. It is very tiny. So yeah, no idea what it's really about. I assume Islanders and the Fisher of Men, whatever that means. Next up is O Pioneers by Willa Cather. Cather is I think Nebraska's state writer, state poet, something very important. And I had to read a short story by her when I took my American literature class, and I liked it. So I want to read more by her. This is one of her better well-known novels. So basically this is following the main character, Alexandria, as she takes over the family farm after her father dies. Basically just kind of what covers how the main character deals with maintaining a farm, I guess. And Cather was queer, but I don't think there are queer themes that come up explicitly in this. But she was queer. She had a lady friend who she basically lived with for 40 years. So there's that, of course it's not confirmed, but they never dated anyone else and they just lived together for 40 years. So, next up, I think, is the only nonfiction on this list. Well, actually, maybe it's not. We will find that out later. This is What Jane Austen Ate and Charles Dickens Knew. And basically, this is kind of a look into what the average 19th century English person would have known at the time and would have been assumed that they would know. I do want to write novels that take place in the 19th century in England because, who doesn't? I like to start to do my research into doing that. So it covers currency, the calendar, the precedents, the titled, how to address your betters, stuff like that. Then I want to read Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko, and this was first published in 1977, and this is following our main character Tayo as he's come back from being involved in, I think, World War II, and as he's kind of dealing with the trauma from being imprisoned by the Japanese during that time. And I tried to listen to this via audiobook, but it's one of those novels where you can't really do that because kind of the narrative isn't your typical narrative, so you kind of have to read it physically, and even then it can get kind of confusing. Also, there are no chapters, so there's also a thing I have to think about. Then I have the poetry of Emilia Lanier, and she was the first woman to seek publication for her own collection of poetry. She was not successful, but she did try, and that is important for historical merits, of course. And most importantly is her major poem in this collection called Salve Deus Rex Judaeorum, which basically a poem that focuses on the crucifixion of Christ through the lens of the woman around him, which is important for feminist reasons, of course. So here's this. Then I have Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones. Basically all I know is that there are werewolves in this, and our main character has to decide on whether or not he wants to go with his family or kind of go his own way, I guess. That's all I know besides werewolves, and that wasn't it for me. Then I have Salkill Girls by Claire Legrand. Basically I think there's a monster taking girls, and that is all I know. This is one of the last YA books I have on my TBR, I think. So kind of want to get to it, just kind of cleanse my TBR of all the YA, because YA has been very hit or miss for me recently, and I'd rather not have any more misses, So yeah. Next is Midnight Robber by Nalo Hopkinson. It's basically following the Caribbean colonized planet of Toussaint as it is celebrating Carnival. Basically what I know about this is that our main character thinks that the Midnight Robber is just a legend, but she has to kind of invoke the power of the Midnight Robber to save herself. For only the Robber Queen's legendary powers can save herself, can save her life, and set her free. That's basically all. I know that Hopkinson's works can get kind of can go in very interesting directions. So I'm interested in seeing where this idea of the Caribbean colonized planet kind of goes into. So yeah. I've read 2 other books by this author, and I've liked them both, so I'm sure I'm going to like this one as well. And I have The Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. And basically, I've owned this book for a very long time, and I've just never gotten around to actually reading it. This is following 3 young women who go to New York to kind of get involved in the entertainment industry, and they get caught into the Valley of the Dolls, which basically means they get caught into pill addiction. No idea where it goes from there. I tried reading this way back in high school, and I got to page 12. So probably should get a little bit farther on this, and I've owned it for a long ass time, so I should probably either read it or unhaul it. So I wanted to try and read it this year, so here it is. Also, the cover does this, so that's pretty cool.